Folks, I just spoke with Catherine. She said that they'd be coming online momentarily.
I want to thank everybody for joining us. Sorry to keep you waiting. All right. Let me just grab the agenda. Bill, I have printed copies of job descriptions and things here for you. I sent them out, but what I didn't send out was the job posting, which are different. So they're printed for you. Okay, call to order. All members are present at 7:05. My apologies for the delay. All members are present. Hear from the public. Would someone like to speak from the public?
I would like to speak, Catherine.
Who are you?
Steve Maritko.
Hi, Steve.
How are you? Hope everyone's fine. I have a few comments about the proposal brought forward by the Ag Commission.
Okay. What would you like to say?
Okay. I'd like to start by saying that I support traditional farming in Ashford. Ashford benefits greatly from keeping land undeveloped and in the hands of traditional farmers actively working our lands. But we should be aware that our town tax regulations and our zoning are written for traditional farming, and new methods of farming are on our doorstep. We have bestowed benefits on traditional agriculture as we currently know it, but local farming regulations are starting to be leveraged by landowners and corporate interests. The town must consider that landowners can be leasing their land to agricultural corporations, and our regulations may not be prepared for these changes as they provide benefits to loosely defined quote unquote non-traditional agriculture. I received the spreadsheet and document from Lynn Byberg that I believe you all received, and I have the following comments based on that information. Might be helpful if you have it to read along. I'm going to speak directly to attachment A.
Then you'll have to. Then what you'll have to do is you'll have to say what attachment A is.
Okay. Let's see.
And we typically limit the conversation here to between 3 and 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should be 5 minutes. Okay. Attachment A concerns the farm machinery exemption.
Yeah.
And my comments on that are exactly 3 of 23 parties owning farm equipment benefit from this proposal. The disparity in assessed value between those 3 parties that would benefit and 20 others that won't is actually pretty great, almost 2 times in assessment value. It seems clear we're not helping the vast majority of farmers, just wealthy ones owning expensive equipment. Board of Selectmen should consider that Ashford may be and likely is providing tax benefits to farm machinery that is used for agriculture in other towns too.
I don't understand what you just said with that.
Farm machinery, if you're going to bestow tax benefits on farm machinery, then you should consider that the farm machinery isn't limited to being operated in Ashford. It could be used elsewhere. Okay.
We'll come back to that in our discussion.
Sure, okay.
Why don't you continue?
Attachment C. Attachment C has to do with additional exemption amount if farm building exemption amount is increased. Okay. The additional farm building exemption, which is apparently not yet up to date, like the other proposals, benefit exactly 3 farmers among a total of 20 listed on that attachment. And then attachment B, which has to do with current farm building or orchard exemption, and proposal 2, which is an exemption. There were a couple of exemptions proposed to add vegetable nursery and quote unquote non-traditional, and adopt a local option to increase the, I think, to a new amount, 200,000 maybe. In any case, my comments on C, on attachment B are, one, the sheet is a bit confusing to me and it should be looked at closely. Column D states the current exemption amount. Column G suggests that if the new proposal is adopted, the exemption would go down, which is what I'm confused about. That doesn't seem correct, but if it is, the only landowner that would benefit from it is one, the Heffleys. I suspect something is labeled incorrectly. In any case, it appears that once again, only 4 of 20 farmers benefit from the proposal, and they happen to be several of the same that were associated with attachment C. Proposal language, the proposals that were put forward by the Ag Commission. In general, the town should not adopt exemptions that use percentage amounts without also adopting a cap on the total exemption. Why? A $2 million or $20 million non-traditional agricultural enterprise might leverage those adopted exemptions, and the town would be deprived of substantial tax benefit. Also, the town should continue to use specific language defining types of agricultural exemptions. You should not adopt regulations or exemptions that use loosely defined language like non-traditional farming, because it opens the door for unexpected surprises. Some new farming methods increasingly look like factories and large commercial structures that may bring complicated concerns surrounding land use and infrastructure to our town and leverage tax language that is loosely defined. 2 more things. These proposals reduce the tax burden on, in my opinion, a few wealthy residents of our town at the expense of other taxpayers, our schools, and other town services. It's also a bit surprising that the Ag Commission endorses these proposals when so few farmers in our town, as defined by our assessments, actually benefit from any of these proposals. That's all. Did you want to go back over anything?
Thank you, Steve. Hey, Steve, do you have something that's written up that can be attached to the minutes? Or was that just you speaking?
I do. Yeah.
Is it the same thing you said during the meeting?
Yes, it is.
Okay, would you please email that to me?
I could.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, would any of you object to us moving the, well, that's fresh in our minds, moving the item 7E under old business, consideration of Agriculture Commission recommendation that the town adopt CGS 1291 as amended by HB 5524. Would you mind if we move that up on the agenda to be the next thing?
I will make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so Doug, would you like to speak to the, or actually, perhaps it would be best if Lynn Byberg spoke to this in terms of what these really mean. I'm not sure which one to have speak first.
I can introduce the topic if you'd like, Catherine.
That would be great, Doug. Thank you.
Sure. So I'm here on behalf of the Agriculture Commission. I'm the vice chair. And what the commission has put together is, as you're aware, the Agriculture Commission is charged with fostering sustainable agriculture in Ashford. And we're an advisory commission to all the other commissions in town. So what we've outlined in the attachment that was submitted to the Board of Selectmen is recommending that the town adopts the Connecticut General Statute 12-91, A, B, and C as amended, inclusive of the recent HB 5524 bill that was passed in July 1st of this year. Just wanted to note that the commission is not recommending anything additional, but just adopting the wording from the state as governed by the state, nothing more, nothing less.
Understood. Would you like Lynn to take us through some of her
Sure.
analysis at this point?
That would be helpful, yes.
And as you do that, Lynn, would you mind just reminding us of what the total tax decrease would be for each of these scenarios based upon the farmers that we have today?
Sure. So first, I just want to respond to Steve's comment on the third spreadsheet. That spreadsheet was based on the Ag Commission's first proposal, which they have since changed. But I will explain that the last column that Steve was questioning was additional exemption amount that would reduce the the tax base. That's what the last column was, but currently the Ag Commission is no longer requesting the board consider that. It was the first two spreadsheets that he referred to, A and B. So the first one, attachment A, which we had gone over at the last meeting, but just to go over it again quickly, it shows if the town adopts the extra 100,000, well, I'm sorry, 250,000 in farm machinery exemptions, the last column on the right, we have 3 farms that would have additional assessment that would be eligible for exemption, which would be a total tax loss of $3,637. So that's, and this is all based on the 2023 grand list.
Which is the best we can do. Thank you.
Correct. And
And would you mention that 3,000 what?
3,000.
That dollar figure.
I'm sorry,
Dollar figure you just mentioned.
$3,637 would be the tax loss if the town adopted additional farm machinery. I mean, it can be anything up to 250,000. We don't have a local option for farm machinery. I want to make that clear too. We currently only have what the state mandates, which is up to $100,000. So you can see the highest assessment that would be eligible would be 56,000. So, anything from 56,800 to 250,000, based on the current information that we have, there would be basically 3,700 in tax loss for the farm machinery exemption. The new local option that the Ag Commission is proposing, no, I'm sorry, that is the new, because we don't have a local option for the farm machinery. So that would be a whole new local option, a new ordinance for the town.
And that local option, if I recall, and I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but the local option would be something that is also a state option. I'm trying to remember.
Currently, every town has to give up to 100,000. That's state mandated. And so that's what we're doing. So the spreadsheet reflects in the second to the last column what we're currently exempting for farm machinery, which equals $26,250 in tax loss. And if the town did an ordinance for a local option for any higher amount, it could be up to the 3,637 additional tax loss.
Okay.
So that would be adding an ordinance for the farm machinery.
Got it.
And Lynn, that would be in compliance with the new legislation that the state has passed?
Well, there always has been a local option for an additional 100,000 of farm machinery, but Ashford does not have that.
Correct.
So the ordinance, the local option has been there for a long time. Ashford has not had it, but it just so happens that the recent legislation change increased that extra 100,000 to 250,000.
Right.
Got you. Okay.
So it would be new to Ashford. It had already existed. We just didn't have it. And now the limit is higher than what it was. So
Very good.
state is 100,000 and you could do local up to an additional 250,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is the farm building. And again, the Ag Commission is requesting that the board consider, we currently have a local option in place since 2013 to give up to $100,000 assessed value for each farm building. So we have an existing local ordinance, but again, legislation just changed in June to increase that 100,000 up to 500,000 in assessment per building. So we currently have a tax loss of $36,700 for the farm buildings that are exempted up to 100,000 per building. If the town adopts, well, if they change the local option, excuse me, we already have the local option. If we change the ordinance and increase the amount anywhere up to 500,000 per farm building, which is the new limit, there would be, based again on the current values that we have, there would be an additional 14,510 in tax loss.
So it'd roughly be brought up to 50,000? What we have now with the new?
Roughly.
Well, we didn't talk about the farm machinery. The farm machinery, so let me just do it this way. The farm machinery we currently have, I'm just going to do thousands. We have 26,000 in tax loss. If you adopted the additional farm machinery, there'd be another, I'll round it up to 4,000. For farm buildings, we currently have $30,000 in tax loss. If you change the ordinance to increase the exemption, there would be an additional 15,000. And again, I'm just rounding to thousands. The spreadsheet has the exact numbers on it.
So the total amount on that would be about 45,000?
Or 50,000.
What we have now and
It's
with
more
the
like
new
50.
adoption?
It's more like 50,000, if I understand correctly on those numbers.
That's what I got
Well,
the first
We
time.
had 36.7
And then
that we were already losing because of the 100,000 per building.
Right.
And then the, bear with me,
14,510.
the, going to 500,000 would be another 14,510. Is that correct?
Yes, so that there would
I'm
be
sorry,
just,
based upon the buildings we have today, none of which are 500,000.
right. So that total for farm building would be 51,000.
Got it. Thank you.
And then of course, then there's the farm machinery. We currently have the 26,250. If we added the additional farm machinery, it would be another 3,637. So it's about 30,000 for the farm machinery.
So the bottom line for these two is that it would be the 3,637 plus the 14,510. That would be the
Correct.
difference if we adopted both of these.
Correct.
So it's less than $20,000. All right. Anything else we need to cover in this?
Catherine, that's less than 20,000 additional, right?
Right, exactly. And if someone leases property Okay, let's just say someone leased their property and there's farm buildings and farm equipment on it. The person who pays the taxes is the person who leases the property, or is it the property owner?
Well, in the
I'm
case,
just, that's an ignorant question. I just don't know.
well, there's two different parts to this. If it's farm buildings and somebody is leasing the buildings, it would depend on what the arrangement is between the lessor and the lessee, who's paying the taxes on it.
Ah,
And with the farm machinery, it would be who owns the farm machinery.
okay,
Like if you rented out, I'll just give an example. If you had land and that you rented out, or somebody is renting your land to store their farm machinery, but they're using that farm machinery for their business, the person, again, who owns the farm machinery is the one who's going to declare it, ask for the exemption, and then pay the taxes.
right. My original assumption was he who owns the land pays the taxes. He who owns the machinery pays the taxes. But if someone is leasing the land and what essentially the buildings, that would be whoever is leasing is paying the taxes.
I
Yes,
think that would depend on the agreement.
Right.
Correct.
okay,
Right.
I got it. Thank you. Again, we're only talking about a total of less than $20,000 in terms of difference.
Catherine, I have a couple of questions for Lynn.
Sure.
Lynn, Steve had mentioned that out of the 20 some odd farms we have in town, that only 3 of them would be benefiting by this change. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, for the farm machinery, there are 3 that would benefit because their farm machinery assessment exceeds the current limit of 100,000. And there's 3 also for the farm buildings that would benefit from it. Do you have the spreadsheets, Bill? Oh, you don't have the spreadsheet with you, right?
I don't have them in front of me.
Got it.
No.
Okay.
So, I mean, do you have any thought on that? It's just, I assume those that are eligible, and those that are not, are not.
Right.
Right. We just, I mean, it's based on what we currently know. We don't know, if anybody plans any of the farm operations, would get additional equipment or build additional buildings that would then qualify for the exemption.
Right. It depends on how big those farms grow.
Yeah. Lynn, on
Oh, sorry.
I know you're familiar with procedures in a number of other towns. Are most of the towns in your in the Assessors Association adapting the new regulations that the state is permitting?
It's too soon to know. I mean, it was just passed. So I don't know the answer to that yet. I only know of towns that currently have one or the other or both of these exemptions in their current form prior to the legislative changes with the increases.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I do not know if, I do not know if other towns are already, planning to add or amend their current ordinances.
Okay. Because if I remember right, the first time the Ag Commission came to us, they were dealing with the old legislation.
Correct.
And
Correct.
during those discussions, then the new legislation was passed. And I think our board, I don't know, Catherine, Roger, if you remember the same way, thought, well, let's consider this once the new legislation and the
Right.
parameters are in place before we make any decision on it. I think that's what we're doing. We're trying to do.
Right. And I think that we were not looking to hinder the farms really in any way because we want to
No.
encourage
It's
farming.
the opposite, right?
Quick
And-
question, if I may.
Yeah.
Lynn, you keep mentioning that we can award up to 500,000. I mean, what is our highest property at this point? I mean, we can award up to a lesser amount, right?
Correct. We have three for the farm building. It's currently 100,000. You can do anything up to 500,000. You know, do you have the spreadsheet in front of you?
No, we don't.
I do not.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, there's one that would be, because there's two, you know, high value buildings, it would be an additional, for that one property, would be additional 348,000 in assessment that would be exempt if you had anything over 348,000, you know, as the limit. And then there's one that's just under 50,000 additional, and then one that is just over 25,000, and I'm talking assessment.
Mhm.
But the highest for one farm operation is 348,000 in additional assessment.
So we're, in a sense, we're not close to 500,000 at this point.
Yes, correct.
And that's the legislation changed it to 500,000,
Yes.
correct? All right. Doug, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just have one comment. I just wanted to comment on something Bill said a couple minutes ago. He is correct. We did pause knowing that the state was working on revisions to this. And with it freshly passed, the commission thought we'd amend our recommendation to the selectmen and capture the updates reflective of House Bill 5524, and that's what's in the proposal that was sent to you. Again,
Nick?
we're just recommending that you consider what the state has noted as is. We're not asking for anything different. Let the state mandate it. I have one other point, but I'll pause in case you had a comment, Catherine.
Nick, did you have any comments?
I didn't have any initial comments, no.
I didn't want to put you on the spot. I just wanted to give you the opportunity.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Doug, did you want to continue?
Sure. The last thing I just wanted to state is the state also does define what the state feels falls under the category of agriculture, and that's in the state general statutes. So that is defined, and anything associated with agriculture, the way the town regulations are set up, does tie back to the state regulations specifically.
So we're consistent.
That's correct. That's the intent.
All right. And if I understand correctly, you're trying to get the same consistency with the other. What's
Yes.
recommended.
Yes. Allowing you to consider it, yes.
Thank you. Bill, Roger,
Mhm.
your pleasure. I think Roger's doing math.
No, helping a neighbor.
Oh, sorry. Bill, did you have any more comments? Did we lose you? I will tell everybody, I have a hard time following people who I don't see their faces when they're talking. Just so you know. Bill Ferretti. Hi, Bill. Yes. Come back in. Okay. Okay, I'll look for you. Ah. Okay, call me back if you have more trouble, because we'll put you on speaker here. Okay. Bill's having a little trouble with he got knocked out.
But just wanted to thank Lynn for her input. I think that was helpful for you and Bill and Roger to understand what this means to the town.
Lynn's been very diligent in following this and assessing it. She's done it with the old rules, with the new rules,
Yeah,
new legislation. And I'm glad that we at least got the new legislation and we're able to work with that. I think one thing that's a concern is that the grand list, when does the grand list get finalized for October 1st?
I don't wrap it up until the end of January next year. I mean, each year.
Okay. So in terms of timing, should this get approved, the timing could be in effect before you are finalizing the grand list, or how would that work?
Well, the only thing is, currently, these types of applications for exemptions are due by November 1st.
Okay. So we would have to have a town meeting, public hearing, town meeting, in order to approve these, should we decide to do so. Correct?
Yes, because one is modifying the existing ordinance for the farm building,
Yeah,
and one is creating the new ordinance for the additional farm machinery.
got it.
And so farm machinery is part of when a business files their personal property declaration, which is due November 1st each year. And as part of that, if they are requesting the exemption, they file the application for the exemption at the same time they file their declaration. That's where the November 1st date comes in.
Thank you. You're always a good teacher. All right, here comes Bill. Bill, you back in? You're in here twice. Once. Connecting to audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. All right, what was just, I don't know if you missed it, but one of the things is there's kind of a November 1st, I'm going to call it a deadline, if you will, for having any changes in place in order for Lynn to do her work.
Well, and let me just put it this way. Well, you'd have to talk to the town attorney if for some reason it went past November 1st. The farmers that are currently requesting these exemptions, they will, I take that back. The farm machinery is, well, it's a local option, so they're already filing for the state one. So yeah, there would be an additional thing that it would be best, it would be done. I had another thought there, but no, we would want to stick with November 1st.
Good. That gives us an idea, okay, of timing. All right, Bill, did you have any comments about this? Or Roger?
Nope.
Bill, you're muted. Good eye.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
No, he's muted again.
Okay, you're back.
All right. I'm not sure what's going on with my computer here, but I apologize. I would assume we need a public meeting, hearing
Yes.
and a town meeting.
Yes,
We should be able to do that before November.
that's why I wanted to find out the date and
Yeah.
get it all resolved before then. Is this something that the selectmen are basically approving to go to town, a public hearing, public meeting?
Personally, I'm comfortable on going forward with it. I think it's a minimum impact of where we are right now, but
Yeah,
does it show good faith that we're hoping to benefit our farmers where it makes sense for us.
right. And we have some farmers that have small farms and we have other farmers that have bigger properties and farms. That's just the way it works. How about you, Roger?
Yeah, I mean, hope we can continue looking into ways to help the smaller farms too. But
Yes. And actually, we'll take that as a separate topic, but, at this point,
You need a motion, Catherine?
yeah, I do. I need a
I will
motion.
make,
Yeah.
I will make a motion to authorize the first select, woman to consult,
Thank you.
to consult with council regarding timing and arranging a public hearing to be followed up by a town meeting to address the changes in our agricultural ordinances to fall in line with the new state legislation. And I'll let you cite the numbers when you write that up, Catherine.
Okay. Bear with me, I'm just writing something here.
and I'll second that.
And we have a second. Thank you. All in favor?
Right?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Lynn, thank you for coming and explaining it to us. Doug, same. Nick,
As
glad to
usual,
have you
Lynn, thank you
here.
very much for your
And
expertise.
Steve,
You're
thank
welcome.
you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts about this. You can send me that write-up if you like, and I will add it to the minutes. Okay. All right, moving on to the first selectmen's briefing. I really don't have anything to speak about other than to say that we have started to get some responses, a couple already, to our job openings. However, what I did was I fixed the job descriptions, but I didn't really put out a proper job posting, which typically says the number of hours and the pay scale. So what I did was I kind of went back and I created those to share with you. And Bill, I know you're not physically here tonight. I printed them up. I'd like to take that off, basically offline for now. As I'm just letting you know from the selectmen's briefing, that's one of the things I was working on. So I don't really have much more than that, I don't think. No. But I would like to, and actually Chris had second guessed, I would like to add to the bottom, towards the bottom of our agenda, to talk about the job postings. So if someone would add that, that would be great.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, all in favor?
Right?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we'll talk about that later. All right, acceptance of minutes of regular meeting of July 25th, 2024. Have you had the opportunity
So
to read
moved.
those? Oh,
I did.
Second.
second. All in favor?
Right?
Aye.
Thank you. That was quick. Hear from boards, commissions, committees. I don't have anything in particular that I've heard of. Anybody else? Okay. Old business, Ashford School roof replacement project status. It's my understanding they are proceeding on schedule. I think that we have another meeting this week. And they did have one situation that came up, and it was in a section of the roof that had not been fully dismantled yet. And there was a tear or a cut in the lining, whatever it is, the membrane in that that other section, and it leaked. It rained, it leaked, and Imperial, our general contractor, is making us whole. Cleaning up the mess and doing whatever they need to make any repairs associated with it. So, and they were very quick to respond. It was a
That's
mistake
good.
on their part.
Catherine, have there been any additional change orders?
No, just the two that we talked about. They haven't said,
Okay.
and they don't anticipate anymore at this point in time.
good.
Yeah. Okay, discuss and or act on Ashford School roof solar options, power purchase agreement versus municipal ownership. I've invited Mark Robbins to answer any questions we have. You got responses to questions that were asked that, bear with me,
Theo Smith and Cynthia Ford.
that Cindy followed up on. She was able to get those answers quickly from E.O. Smith. I followed up on the transistor that's out by the road in front of the school or near the school.
Transformer.
Yeah, and with that, it looks like that would be roughly around $15,000. But we've
How much?
already about 15,000. And Mark, you can correct me if I'm getting this wrong. I think I might have sent you that information as well. I got a response from Eversource. So it would need to have an upgrade to be able to handle the capacity that we need.
Now, would that mean that, and maybe this is a Mark question, would that mean that it would have the capacity that we could generate and Eversource would buy back from us?
Hi, Bill. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you fine.
Yep. So good to connect on this. So we consider this an offsite improvement, and it's not unexpected. It occurs probably 30% of the time, especially in more rural areas. And to answer your question, yes, it would be an upgrade that would allow the grid to receive the two-way power. So we have a prospective agreement with Eversource for net metering, whereby once they review all the specifications of the project, they will tentatively install the new meter at the Ashford School that I'm going to call a bi-directional or a two-way meter, and allow the solar energy to push back to the grid in return for a credit on the electric meter. But they have certain conditions, one being to upgrade in some cases, the reclosers, in some case, the most proximate transformer. And it sounds like your team did some advanced due diligence to confirm that and actually get a price for it. We typically handle this, if it's a PPA, through a contingency. So a bidder on a project does their homework and they put in some contingency, and then we put into our PPA agreement not to exceed. Otherwise, they can, have an opportunity to renegotiate. But your team did some this is actually the first time that's ever happened. Advanced due diligence to figure it out.
It's the first time? Oh, great.
Yeah.
Normally it takes longer, if I recall. It takes the companies longer to get that information.
Mark, would this change your revenue estimates that you had submitted to us in April?
This would not change the revenue estimates, high-level estimates. I do have a couple things just to hit high level, that to refresh the dynamics of the pricing of those high-level estimates. So what they are is, on the downside, the up and the down, I would adjust downwards our estimated cash flow benefit of the purchase option, because according to the updated government map, the Department of Energy map, it looks like the Ashford fell out of the 10% energy community bonus. Okay, that part of Connecticut. So we were projecting on the positive side of the equation that if you were to purchase it cash, you would get a 30% federal credit plus a 10% bonus. That bonus appears to have faded away as of the summer of 2024. And on the upside of the ledger, when we were giving you an estimated savings of doing a PPA, the that was based on the most available historic electric bill at the time. And we did a quick look at your current electric supply, and it looks like, shocking, Eversource has raised rates once again. So the savings, if you were to go forward with the PPA option, consider it like a lease, will be slightly higher than projected. So at a high, it'll be slightly higher.
You
Savings.
were projecting $3,300 a year, rounded out. What are you guessing? 10% more than that?
I'm guessing potentially high level 30% more than that savings year one.
30%.
Thank you.
And this is, all very fluid based on supply contracts and summer versus winter Eversource pricing, and then the government incentives and blah, blah, blah. But there's certainly, the numbers are different if you own it with a huge, with a significant financial upfront cost, and then a maintenance obligation, which should also be looked at. And I'm not sure that was included. I think I addressed that in a follow-up email. But at a super high level, take that memo, which was improperly dated 2023. It was an April 2024 memo. I would downwardly adjust by about 10% the cash benefit savings, and upwardly adjust the PPA savings down on the cash purchase by 10%, and raise the potential savings if you did a PPA by approximately 30%.
Thank you. And we understand that it's kind of fluid. So trying to rope something that's moving. Bill fell off again, I think. Hi, Bill, we still see you on there.
Yeah, I just lost you again. Oh, wait a minute, you're coming back on.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, what you said was that with the cash purchase, we would bring it down 10% savings. And with the PPA, we bring it up 30%. Is that correct, Mark?
Yes.
Okay, Bill, I'm gonna get off. Can you hear? You're muted.
I'm hearing you.
There you are. Okay.
So looking at that quick, Mark, the PPA annual savings would be up to about $4,200, $4,500. And the ownership would be down to what, 59, 58?
Roughly. And then you'd have to take out of the ownership scenario, however you want to address it, with a cash set aside or a maintenance fixed price maintenance contract or some such. But like owning any asset, in this case, an asset that cost, upfront cost before federal and state incentives of somewhere between $500,000 and $800,000, depending on how big a system. But it's,
Say that again.
So like with anything, air conditioning or boiler or any energy asset, there should be a nominal maintenance cost budgeted, which was not budgeted in this initial upfront cost, but it would be a number, let's say $5,000 a year, to deduct from the projected annual savings. So in addition to the 10% haircut by the energy communities fading away this summer, I would carve out an additional $5,000 a year on the estimated average annual savings under the purchase scenario for a maintenance agreement or maintenance set aside.
Thank you.
So with everything considered and rounding off figures or whatever, on an ownership annual revenue, we're talking about 50,000. And on the PPA, about 5,000.
Yeah, but that would be a low, the PPA savings of 5,000 would be on the low end year one, and it would grow. I would estimate the average annual savings on the PPA to be in the teens. As you renew your electric rates in the next few years at projected higher rates, the savings of having not bought that expensive electricity would grow. So I'd say you're making the decision today, high level, breaking it down, purchase option, you're spending something like $700,000 of cash up front, but then going through the administrative task and time delay of going through the reclaiming money both from the state and the treasury over the next 12 to 18 months. And then obviously there's an administrative task of doing that plus operating, long-term operating, but you would be net some purchase cost of, let's say, 200,000 out of pocket, and you'd save something like 50,000 a year, which is terrific, but you do have the maintenance obligation. Or
So instead of a 3-year payback that you estimated, or a little less, you're talking about a 4-year payback?
yes,
But what we're not talking about is the maintenance, how much that would be.
Well, I think he figured in that 5,000.
I don't know why I think that's a low number.
Is that correct, Mark?
so year one, I mean, I would average it out to 5,000 a year over the ownership. You shouldn't really have any such expense the first couple of years, but you know that you would be exposed to expenses in the future years. But if you was entered into a maintenance contract the first 5 years at $5,000, you know, your contractor's making money, and you're losing money. But after that, when the inverters start to age out, then you're going to be calling on that, you know, you're going to be exercising.
The converters typically have a 5-year warranty.
Well, it depends what you specify and buy. They're more like 7 to 10.
10-year warranty.
Yeah.
And the panels have what?
The panels have a longer warranty that really go out now to 20 years as a base. But just like with a roof warranty, or a mattress warranty, they're prorated, right? So if it's failing to perform, they don't guarantee it's performing at 100% every year for 20 years, but they have a built-in degradation. So they anticipate that they degrade or fail, and they're less productive year over year by about 5%.
Quick question. I mean, we were having a brief discussion about the micro inverters versus the larger ones. Is there a cost difference in purchasing micro versus the traditional?
Well, that's interesting. Is there a cost difference? Maybe we'd have to look at the specific equipment. What we would probably see, to get into the weeds on this, is we would use power optimizers. So every pair of panels would receive a power optimizer and then a central inverter. So the strings are set up to probably so on the size system we're expecting, there'll probably be 3 inverter modules. There'll be 3 different strings totaling about 300 kW, and then each pair of panels would have a power optimizer. But I don't know if that answered your question. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm new to all this, so I mean, I just heard just in terms of you know, that micro was kind of the way to go. I don't know that it is or it isn't. I mean,
Yeah, not at this scale system, we tend to, so what we would do when we get into the details on this, and I'm gonna probably recommend that we take a deeper dive into the actual power purchase agreement and do some sort of custom provisions to that. Think of it as the lease. We're not going to have a standard, buy it from Amazon or Google lease, but we're going to want to really get into the details on the lease. So one of the things that I would recommend in our actual power purchase agreement is that the client gets what's called panel level visibility. We have to specify this before they buy the equipment, and it's a provision of the software that would allow you to look at all of each pair of panels and to see if something's failing to perform. And then we could, we would have access to it as would the counterparty or the contractor, but then we could call their attention to it without losing savings and without losing time. It's like having a dashboard on your car that shows if any of the cylinders aren't firing, and you don't have to take it to the dealer to diagnose it. So we would ask for that level of visibility into the software.
And that's making an assumption that perhaps, in terms of an agreement with the other company,
Right.
they're not really looking at the performance over time. They're not looking at the panels, so we have to.
Well, I really, how can I say this? They should.
Bluntly,
They should, but like, just to be frank,
yeah.
when these systems get to scale, and there are a lot of different counterparties, like the Green Bank was rolling these up, like collateralizing mortgages and not paying attention who was in default or paying and which systems were or were not working. They just rolled them up, sold them on Wall Street, and you get what you get. And in some cases, you get bankruptcies. You buy a bunch of mortgages, and if you're not following up with everyone paying their rent, you get bad debt. So it happened. Hope it's not going to happen, but I would, as your consultant, we would put a provision in the agreement. It's going to take a little extra hours here, but we would put some performance guarantee. And in the event the system fails to generate the savings, and we'll have to weather normalize it, because they'll push back and say, well, what if the sun never shone that year? So we'd weather normalize it.
Mhm.
In the event the system fails to perform and they don't repair it expeditiously, they make you whole
Right.
on the savings. And so there's going to be some arm wrestling with the contractor, but we can draft this and we can put this as part of we can stipulate in our solicitation for pricing. We can get into the weeds on this and say, we're looking for counterparties, and here is our lease, if you will. Take it or leave it. Or if you have major issues, you can respond accordingly and we can negotiate if we see fit. But instead of just saying, we're looking for vendors, here's our roof and here's our Z-Rack, I would recommend, if you have the bandwidth for it, we can invest some additional time. And in addition to soliciting qualified vendors and looking for their resume and the lowest price, also say, by the way, here is the specification, here is the actual agreement, here is the actual lease provisions, and you got to review it and acknowledge and initial it if you want to participate in this, as a qualified respondent.
So there was another question that came up, and I know you shared the answer with me, but I'd like you to explain it to the rest of the gang. Is what if we were to do a PPA and we wanted to purchase after 5 years?
Yeah, purchase option.
How would that purchase option work? Would it be negotiated up front as to what the price would be at the point in time when we do the PPA? Would that be in the contract? Or is it something that would have to be assessed and priced at the time we would decide to purchase after 5 years?
Well, we can ask for anything, right? You're a free agent. You're soliciting, as you see best fit for the town.
Yeah.
And these are somewhat unique, and I'm not going to call it an exotic provision because we do introduce it to the agreements probably 50% of the time. But like with a car, you can lease it and then you have a right to purchase it at the, based on depreciated value. And the IRS is involved in all of this because the contractors or the investors are doing it for the tax credit. So there is a requirement that the contractor or the investor hold the asset not change hands for the first 5 years, for at least 5 years. Otherwise, I understand that there's something called a tax recapture penalty. So my understanding, and this could change, and we can, get tax consultant to confirm, but that they would be reluctant to enter into an agreement. They would be reluctant unless you paid their penalty to sell it prior to year 5.
Well, I'm thinking after 5.
Yeah, after year 5. So we can put in there like what we want. They're going to want to make sure they're not just a vessel for the tax conduit, and they want to be able to estimate your intentions if you're really planning to exercise it. They may put in language that says it's subject to a third party fair market appraisal, and then we have the right to purchase it at the fair market appraised value. But we can't stipulate an exact amount, is my understanding, without it being a red flag to the IRS. But the workaround has been subject to third-party appraisal and mutual agreement, and we can have an estimate of the depreciated value. So sorry, it's a fuzzy answer, but
Well, I think
Mark,
just-
I've been looking into that a little bit too. We use your figures, and they're already dated now on this last memorandum we got from you, but let's say their cost for this system, once it's designed, is $700,000. If we buy it, we're going to be getting the Board of Ed reimbursement, the building fund, the 65% from the state, hopefully 25 or 30% from the feds. And that's why we can buy it for 170. If they're going to sell it to us, they're going to sell it to us at what their costs and whatever depreciation we figure out is reasonable. It's not going to be at what we could buy it today, is it? Going on the figures you've given us here, that I'm looking at your April memo. If and I'm discounting the 10% that you said we've probably already lost, we can get about a 75% grant to offset cost and end up with a bottom line of about 170,000. And I know these are all ballpark figures. The PPA provider is not going to be getting those grants. They're going to be paying the higher amount, the 700,000,
right.
700,028. Their sale is going to be based on that price, right?
That's a very good point. Yeah, that's right. They're not getting any co-funding from the Connecticut School Grant Authority. They'd only get 30%. They get the 30%.
So if we exercise an option to buy it back, we're probably going to pay considerably more than we would pay at installation of this, being the owner.
Well, if you're comparing the two scenarios, you're right. They're going to want to sell it to you. So it's going to be a negotiation. They're going to either say an appraised value plus some compensate. It's like selling a bond early. So they're going to say, well, should we say, the lost opportunity cost or the value of that cash flow that they could have gotten from you and the ZRECs for at least the balance of the ZREC term. And there'll be some formula where they figure out what it would take to make them whole, but you can do it. But their basis will be higher than your basis if you were to get So the IRA right now, the Inflation Reduction Act, great bill, terrible name, levels the playing field, which is either they get a 30% tax credit, or you could do this thing instead of a tax credit, you could get a direct pay from the Treasury a year from now, once you've spent all the money, paid everybody, filed a 990, and then wait for the money to come back from the government. So there's some time delay there.
That's the 12 to 18 months after getting it installed.
Yes. Yeah. So there's that. But that levels of playing field. So whatever the cost is, you know what, actually, Bill, there's another small nuance, which is that if you were to commission somebody to build this for you, I think you have to use prevailing wage.
Mhm.
I think, or at least if you're getting money from the Connecticut, they would probably
Any municipal or state expenditure on a project over 100,000 is
right.
susceptible to prevailing wage.
And so if a solar panel installation costs $1, well, let's say 50 cents is the panel, the price doesn't change, but the labor goes up. So it's not, the whole thing doesn't go up, but the cost of the labor would go up by some rate, by some percentage rate. It's up, right? So
Last time I looked at on some of our projects, we were almost under prevailing wage.
okay, well, that's interesting. So, yeah, so, but if you do the PPA, where a private investor, let's say, um, Bill Gates owns this thing and he's going to commission it to be installed. He is a private investor, it's his private funds. And so he doesn't have to pay prevailing wage. So I guess what I'm saying is that in the PPA scenario, they can probably make it happen for a little bit less red tape than you would be exposed to. Because if you bought it, you're getting the huge funding from the Department of Connecticut School Board, but you're also paying a little bit more because you got to go by their rules for procurement. So you're going to pay prevailing wage.
What's the impact on ZREC if this is delayed?
Well, okay, so the other thing is, we've been talking about it, for a while here, and it's easy to type the memo, and we had those Zoom calls with the state, and they said, well, it'd be worth up to 65% contribution, but there is a process, and there's risk of not going through that process. We haven't started that process. We're behind the 8 ball. Our ZRECs are timing out. And when we had the initial call with the school, folks of the school, they said something like, yeah, well, if you do this next year, you could get up to, and I said, well, why next year? We want to do it now. And the sort of the sentiment was like, wow, that's ambitious to try to get it, just because there's an administrative process and there's documents that have to be prepared and that have not been prepared, and meetings calendared, and then there's a Q&A with them. So I have not allocated in these schedules any, as of today, we have not gone through the design, we've not entered into that process. So there is a risk that we're adding an administrative process that's requiring some upfront cost of actually coming up with designs for them to render an opinion on, and then back and forth, which we haven't built into this timeline. So the Rex could be at risk, is what I'm saying.
You kind of lost me there. The timeline risk, I know would be a cost to that, to do the design and to hire you or a firm like you or whatever. But what are we jeopardizing in grants or overall cost with that year
It's
delay or
direct.
whatever?
Yeah.
Isn't there a timing consideration with the ZRECs?
The Z-Rex,
expire?
yeah. So we ran out of runway on the Z-Rex in April this year. We put down a refundable extension payment, $4,500 approximately. And that bought you 6 months. We're probably going to have to go back to you and do another 6-month extension. And after 2 extensions, we are appealing to Pura. So it's not uncharted territory. We've done it a couple times for clients in the past, but we have to show cause. for it. And I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know, the process of getting the state money is not, it's not a, we don't push a button. It's like the same process you went through where you get a town referendum and then we have to get a design and then we have to enter into a review process with the state. And that is going to cost time and money up front. And you may have to solicit, well, if you want your consultant services also to be covered, but that may just be icing on the cake. But if you wanted your consultant services, you'd have to go through a state procurement process for that consultant as well. But you may forego that, reimbursement on that. You will get if you own it, if you buy it, you will get the 30% on total project cost, period, including consultants and material and everything. But if you want the 65% contribution to be applied to the material, trades, and consultant, you may have to hire your consultant through, yet again, a competitive procurement process.
How long does that typically take?
Catherine, I'll defer to you on that, calendar.
How long would that take? The process of getting a design
You'd have to
and
do an
having it reviewed with the state?
RFQ.
No, you got to get the design. So how long does it take to get a design for this?
Well, we'd have to have a meeting with the state and know what they want. So layout is easy. We can do the layout. MHR can do the layout. And structural engineer review, we already have Pinani on board. They've been procured. I don't know if they've been procured compliant with state criteria, but anyway. And then we
weren't.
electrical PE stamped electrical design, which we will ultimately need to get interconnection approval, but we were planning to shift that responsibility onto the contractor once awarded, and that's happening, in December. But if we were to advance that right now, MHR we can hire a sub-consultant electrical engineer to stamp those drawings, but it's just some time and cost.
So we'd have to go out, Mark, we'd have to go out to RFP for your services to do all the services you just mentioned. Correct?
Yes. But all of our services are only a small portion of the total project cost. So you could let's say it's a $700,000 project at the end of the day, but our services are $25,000 of that 700.
Yeah.
Well, the state could just say, listen, you got a consultant on board premature to the RFP, so we're only going to apply our 65% cost share to the materials and trades as awarded, and you'd still get the 30% federal rebate on our services, but not the 60%. That may not move your world, be material to your decision.
But in order to jump through their hoops, we would have to go out to an RFP for a company that offers your services.
If you want our services to be one of the costs that they contribute to, right? You could just say, it's a design service, you fund it up front, and you're going to get the 30% incentive on that, the federal incentive. And you really want to get to a point with them that they are going to memorialize their 65% commitment to the construction costs. That could be a pathway forward, but that's a pathway forward. But
so Mark, you had started to lay out a kind of a timeline before, and you were talking about, if we had to go and get the second ZREC approval, because we've already got an extension, and then I think one extension was for what, September, and another one was for April.
Yep.
There's no way that we could have everything together that we needed to get together for September. So we already know that you'd have to use the second, actually, what would be the third extension, I believe, overall, which could be appealed by Pura. Right?
Yep.
That's if we can even get everything together that we would have to have together for purchase by then. I don't know if that's an issue or not, I don't, again, how long design really takes, the level of detail that Pura would need to see, I don't know. And what would we use as a show cause for Pura?
We are going to,
Just didn't get off the stick?
yeah, even the PPA, well, show cause, you had to do a new roof. I mean, you know, to construct the arguments, you had to do a new roof. Precondition meetings were scuttled early on due to, you know, pandemic, slowed down the overall delivery of the roof project. We'd create an argument. We'd show that you've, you know, invested in services to date, that we have the Z-Rex. Well, obviously, because that's the thing we're extending. I'm pretty sure we could get Pura to extend it, the Z-Rex. But yeah, it's I guess I just need guidance from you how you want to either one or one could run a parallel path on these two things.
I'm trying to think of how we could possibly have the staff to run a parallel path. Because of
if you
the
did
work
it,
required.
If you backed off of, okay, here's one way to look at, a couple ways to look at it. If you backed off of trying to, so I am confident that if you just do a PPA, the counterparty, the investor, they're going to get that 30% tax credit and reflect that in the lower electric bill or lower PPA. If you buy the system cash today, you will definitely get the 30%, and you can include in the cost basis everything you've spent to date on consulting fees. We could probably include the Peroni structural engineer bill and the material and trades. It's all applicable cost, 30% federal. In terms of getting the holy grail, which is how do you get also, in addition to 30%, how do you get this state school construction authority 65%? I would say because of timing issues, it's too aggressive to try to get them to also cover 65% of the pre-design costs. I would just not try to chase that extra, but have them cover 65% of the material and trade contractor costs, the big item. Because if you want them to also cover the consulting fees to get you there, I think that requires an RFP to solicit my services that you haven't even drafted yet or haven't even had a meeting to draft. So I'd be worried that would be too ambitious to get done by the schedule required for our Z-Rex.
Right. Okay. The other thing is, it might sound maybe not realistic, I'm not sure, but the longer we wait, the less new our roof is.
Yeah. I will say something that if you were to invest some of the monies to do a detailed schematic design, which you could then use to present to the state to see if they, you know, to stress test this and see how quickly they respond or if they approve it immediately. But in any event, it wouldn't be wasted effort because we could use that as an exhibit for a construction guidance document for the contractor. And we could also use it, we would advance that level of detail for specs, for the specification of work to be used for your contractor who's going to be building this system in the spring. So, and we can get, we can roll that into the cost basis, if you want, also for reimbursement from the contractor. So it wouldn't be a wasted effort to commission that level of design, because somebody's gonna have to do it to pull a building permit at some point.
So is that level of design only for a purchase? Or is it also, can it be applied to a PPA?
Well, I think, because you will have invested millions of dollars in a roof. And I think, and you've already invested with a third-party engineer, Pinoni, to validate, the capacity of the roof and the drainage system. So I think it will have use and utility in either scenario. If you had some big warehouse you didn't care about and you just wanted the cheapest solar system, you're not worried about roof penetrations. But given what you've gone through on your other buildings, and given how near and dear to you protecting the integrity of this new multi-million-dollar roof is, I think it would be prudent to add the other layer of specification to this, and it would be a good document to invest a couple $1,000s in, whether or not you're using it to try to trigger and get a commitment from the state, or as a contractor guidance document, and make sure it doesn't, I think it would be valuable, and it could help accelerate the approval process right now, and get the roof, the quicker we get the solar installed, whether it's PPA or ownership, the quicker you start saving money. Okay. And so time is money, and the less anxiety we have about running out of time. So having this tool, this exhibit, investing some money up front in the actual technical layout, I think would be helpful. It will accelerate the PPA and get you to installation quicker, and it might get us a cheaper PPA price. Because frankly, an investor is going to turn around and they're going to come up with a budget, and the first money they spend will be to hire a PE to do what we're talking about doing now.
Exactly.
And we would know the system exactly that's intended to go onto that roof.
Exactly. And you can vet it with Pinoni, with your architect, with your committee, and hem and haw, and say, you know what, we don't want panels over there, or actually that's blocking service access to a drain or a rooftop unit. We want you to move the panels, so we can do the red line review of that and get that all ready to go. And so because what happens when we do the cheap and cheerful approach, which is we release an RFP and we get bidders. And then, so that's design build. And then they go off into their corner and design something and come back. And then we say, well, that's not exactly what we had in mind.
Mhm.
We want our fire marshal to look at it. We want this and that. And then we get into this red line, we massage it, and that takes time. And suddenly we're going to be having a panic of like getting that done before, in the spring, before the ZRECs run out. So it would not be, if you're open to it, it would not be a bad thing to commission the design specifications up front,
Mark, am I right? My understanding is that the new state building code mandates that all new roofs, like we put on or we're in the process of putting on, are built to be compatible with solar panels. Is that right?
I can't really answer that the way you want it right now, because first of all, this is a retrofit, so there were some considerations that may have gotten applied to this condition because you got multiple roofs there, and there was some, forensics required to figure out the age of roof and what code applies. But a new building, like a whole new building, building a brand new $50 million school from scratch, I do believe solar would probably be a prerequisite if it was a state-funded project. But in terms of replacing the membrane, I don't, your architect would have to answer that, whether or not it was required to be by the state, what state code required it to be, but I know that we required it to be.
Well, that's what I had heard, that it was a state requirement, but I wasn't thinking the caveat that you said a new roof on a new building compared to a renovated or a roof on an existing building.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think that putting a new roof on the type of building that we're putting our roof on is much more complicated because of the different rises and sections of the building and that. That would probably be beneficial to have an engineering plan and design done sooner rather than later.
Yep. And so like Pinoni introduced layers, their third-party engineer that you consulted with, and they introduced, we asked them, how much load can the roof handle for solar? We wanted to
Yep.
understand that up front. Well, that's an iterative question. So their response was, well, if you, depending on the condition, if you got 3 feet of snow, if you got a lot of rain, that's heavy. But if you can shed the rain with sufficient drainage or bring it to code for dual drains, so you have secondary drains, then that relieves the dead weight of the standing water, and it provides capacity for solar panel weight. So I believe you're doing the redundant drains. And so if that's the case, they stand behind the roof having a more than sufficient capacity for a ambitious solar system on all of the major roofs there, large enough to meet all of the electric demands of the building and to have a, effectively from an electrical and net zero building where you're going to produce from a renewable source all of the required electricity for the building from the solar panel system on the roof.
So looking at this, regardless of which option we were to take, or which direction, doing that design and getting that done ahead of time will tighten up everything we have to do in terms of our contractor to actually build it. In other words, they're not being put in the position of doing the design, they're in the position of doing the building of the roof, the installation. To me, that seems like a wiser way to go, regardless of whether it's a PPA or a purchase.
And at what point?
And then we know what we're getting.
Yeah.
We understand what we're getting, as opposed to, having a company go and do a design, bring it to us, and we start to realize maybe there's something that isn't going to be right.
Or they're going to take a shortcut to
Yeah,
save themselves money.
Exactly, and then change controls.
I mean, either way, we're on the hook for the 15 grand for the transformer upgrade, right?
Yeah, it's figure 50. I would figure 15 to 20 just to be safe. But that was roughly what they came back with. I'm glad that they did. It did give us a kind of a little bit of a leg up because
whether it's a PPA or whether we buy it, we still have to do
the due diligence.
Like having that level of detail. So a contractor, when they're bidding a PPA, they're going to, of the $700,000 project, they typically assume some number. I don't have visibility into their budgets, but they go into it and assume, they have their own line items, the renting a wall, cost of a building permit, transformer upgrade. It's a standard thing. But if we know exactly what it is, it reduces risk for them. It allows them to tighten their budgets, tighten in theory, get, more aggressive. They have less wiggle room when they say, well, we bid at 2-cent PPA, but we really didn't know where you wanted it. And we didn't really know what the offsite costs are. We could say, this is exactly what we want, where we want it. And we've memorialized the offsite cost. And frankly, if we do this design up front, we can go ahead and submit it to Eversource for interconnection approval and start that 2-month review, 2-3-month review, instead of starting that process in Thanksgiving, having the contractor do the design and submit for Eversource, and then they sit on their hands till they get a green light from Eversource, then they order material. We could actually submit it and maybe in a position to shave that 2 months off the back end. By the time we land on a contractor, we could say, by the way, this is exactly what we want. This is exactly where we want it. We know what the costs are, and we already have a building permit.
Mhm.
So bid your price and schedule based on that. Do you know what I mean? I mean, if we're working together closely, good communication, all parties, we could sort of front load that, right? So then we're just going to the market, whether it's a PPA or purchase, but just for the material and labor. But we've already done our design. We already have our interconnection approval. We already have our ZREX, which your committee did, 2 years ago with me. We could do it so that any money or time we're investing now will come off the back end to accelerate, a tighter project.
Do you have a rough idea? Again, let's talk about that design, rough idea of the cost and time for a design of this kind?
There's the design and the meeting with the state.
Yeah,
And, everyone's gonna say, well, it depends how many meetings with the state and how responsive. But, I'd have to give it some thought. I don't want to quote me tonight on a Zoom, but I'd say it's a number, depending on the level of detail, engineering. So we got structural engineering, electrical, time to review it with the state and document it and review it with you before we review it with the state. So I'm gonna put the number, my wild ass guess is some number between $8,000 and $15,000.
I think that's money well spent.
I do too, Bill.
You're not buying a
again,
pig in a poke. We're not depending on somebody else
Right.
telling us what we need. We've researched it. We know the beast that we're dealing with. I favor that strategy.
And it'll be an exhibit to your PPA, just like your new roof design, just like the
Right.
specifications for like it says in the PPA, we say it's got the connections have to be compatible with whoever the manufacturer is, Firestone or Carlisle or whatever it is. This will be an exhibit. And by the way, here's the electrical drawing. This is, what we're seeking permitting for. So
I mean, at
Oh.
this stage, my personal preference is the purchase. But I think whether it's a PPA or a purchase, going with this strategy is going to benefit us either way.
I believe the same thing. I'm more in favor of the PPA because I am concerned about how long it could take to get this thing up. And all of quite a bit of work trying to figure out the staff for it. I understand the savings. I'm not always as confident about the savings as, we're told. And I
Well,
don't
in
know how
this
much,
state,
I don't know.
we can always guarantee utilities are going to go up. I mean, the difference between saving 5,000 a month or saving 500 a month is that's a big difference.
Depending on how long it takes before we actually get it on the roof.
Well,
Do you have to go out to RFP
I was just
before
gonna ask.
you commission the design?
Yeah, do we have to go out to RFP in order to commission a design? Or let me ask this question. Mark, your firm does design, is that correct?
we do design
They
to a certain level.
subcontracted.
We're going to sub out the PE stamp, the electrical interconnection stamp. We sub that out.
But you do under the umbrella of you doing design.
Yeah, we would cause it to happen. We would manage the process.
All right. And so is this something, and I'm asking my fellow and Chris, is this something where we have to go out to bid for that? Or is that something where we can extend or expand your contract? I just don't know.
I
It's
think you should go out to
20,000.
bid. I think we should go out to RFP.
Okay,
If you don't, it may not be reimbursable.
okay. And how much of PPA is reimbursable?
Um, What's the question?
How much PPA, maybe I've lost my mind. I'm a little
We
tired.
don't get reimbursed, but we use that to leverage a lower bid, I believe.
Correct.
We don't get reimbursed.
We wouldn't get reimbursed,
Right.
but we leverage it to get a lower bid on whether it's PPA or purchased. Correct. Okay. All right, so,
Well, yeah, you'll lose, and then here's another thing, if you have this document, so if MHR is making the appeal to Pura for the extension, we're gonna show cause, right? This is
Right.
another exhibit. By the way, our client, we have the Z-Rec,
Decide to do-
we've
yeah.
done the design.
Yeah,
It shows, integrity, intent to complete. So it would be a helpful exhibit when we go to get the extension. But yeah, so I think it would be good to do, and I think it would be a good contract document that would theoretically, well, it will result in a better design,
yeah,
a quicker system. And if we can use this to submit on behalf of the client to Eversource our interconnection, we can shave time off and risk for the contractor, because they're going to price based on, risk as well. But if we
Right.
come to them and say, we've made all our decisions, we already have our interconnection agreement and our Z-Rec, I would hope that it puts us in an even better position for competitive pricing.
so my awkward question is, you're our advisor, okay? And you've been working with us for well over 2 years. And so in terms of going out to bid for design, how awkward does that get? Because you're the person who, your company is the one who is working with us on the Z-Rec and everything else. Is this something your company, well, don't even think I can ask the question. Is this something your company would ever bid on?
Well, I just
And if so, then we have to basically kind of stop the conversation,
Yeah.
so that we make it fair here.
What, just to be clear, we could facilitate it, administer it, just like we're gonna be the owner's rep to oversee the installation
Okay,
for a fee. We could, and if we did this work, we would bill you our time plus the cost from the third party. One approach would be, we could continue in our swim lane,
yeah,
and just like we've been asked on a TNM basis, attend a meeting, review this purchase scenario.
yeah,
Okay, on a TNM basis, we can add the hours we could create this RFP for you, is what I'm gonna say.
right, that's where I'm going.
You could say to me, listen, give us the outline of specification we would need for the full electrical system design and meet the requirements for interconnection approval and or state review. We could create that and we could procure for you 3 competitive bids.
Yep,
And then I could present the bids back to you, and then you could directly, like you did with Pinoni, hire them directly. But you want us to use you could use me as a vessel to facilitate the spec and procuring 3 bids from qualified electrical engineering firms. And then you could select them, and then you would sign that contract and pay for that service directly.
and you'll be acting as the owner's rep
We would
during
continue
during
on-
this entire process, really,
Yes.
correct? Bill, I would prefer that.
Okay. So just so I've got everything straightened out here. We came into this meeting with 3 options: the cash purchase, the PPA, and then the PPA with purchase option. At this point, we've kind of chopped down the purchase option as just not really being advantageous or viable.
Where's Bill? That's the man you
Okay.
have to convince.
I mean, I was just kind of piecing together the conversation we had
Yeah,
with the purchase option, is that it really kind of becomes complex and really difficult to define as to what the purchase buyout would be at any point. Is that correct, Mark?
That is correct.
Okay, all right.
I would think the thing you're talking about doing now is getting competitive
No.
quotes. We get 3 quotes from qualified firms for the electrical design. We're going to use that, and you can use that parallel path. We can frankly we could parallel path it with state review and then reconvene, you know, in a month or two and see
Okay.
where we're at. But at least knowing that you're investing in the design will help us safeguard that Pura extension appeal.
Yeah.
And it will be an exhibit to the PPA. I don't want to keep sitting on the PPA. I'm going to have to update all the dates, but at least it'll be a more mature guidance document. And if we do review this, hire an electrical engineer, and I can submit it for interconnection such that we're not losing time on
Good.
the permitting side. But that's up to you. When I said it's a $8,000 to $15,000, that's a WAG for the cost of the electrical, the actual design documents. You know, 80% of that is the third party fee. Our fee would just be hourly as an extension to our agreement. So if you want to allocate, you know,
Okay.
5
Right.
hours or
I'm
whatever.
going to do a brief recap for Bill that you may have missed. Bill, you still there? Okay. Okay, so what they could do, what Mark could do is he could do the RFP. We could get 3 bids, or, you know, get the bids. And he would help us in, I guess, the selection of those bids. And act as our owner's rep through the process, which is looking out for our interests. Understood. So hold on a second. So that's what he wants, or what Bill was saying is he likes that idea. And that what he wants us to run it by council because we wouldn't want to compromise you being able to work for us in any way. You know, you've been our partner throughout. Would that be correct? Am I saying it okay, Bill? Oh, Bill's back on here. Oh,
I'm
okay.
back on, I think. But
Okay.
yeah, I heard you, and yes, that's you said it right.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I mean, I don't know if there's a problem with him writing the RFP or the RFS, whatever we want to call it, but I think council can lead you in that right direction.
Well, the thing is, if he's writing the RFP, what he's really writing it for is for essentially other companies to bid on. And then he would be part of the oversight of, you know, the helping us with the selection of the company. And then he'd be part of the oversight, a key part of the oversight as we go through the process. Does that sound right, Mark?
Yep, that sounds right. Yep, sounds right.
That sounds fine to me. I have a great deal of respect for your knowledge in this field, Mark. I always have been. I just want to make sure, and Catherine just said it, I don't want to put you in a compromising situation where there's a conflict of interest or whatever. So that's the only thing I think we ought to run it by council on what the whole concept of this is.
Okay.
So we have an agreement with you from a couple years ago, and then it was refreshed with a notice to proceed about a year ago for a three-step process, which was to evaluate, make application, step 1, step 2, secure the ZREX, and develop an RFP. 3 is owner's rep during construction. The nuance here is that it didn't include oversight and procurement of technical design,
Yeah.
but it's, the scope of our services was to evaluate the building, make application, and then solicit contractors through an RFP and or purchase and then, construction management. So we have the continuum of services is already contemplated in the agreements we have executed between us.
My recollection is that was already sent on to council, Catherine, but
Yes,
maybe Mark, you could scan
it
that,
was.
send it to Catherine, and with the comments of what the new elements may be, Mark, and we'll just get verification from him. I don't want to create a problem where we don't have a problem.
Right. Mark, are you okay with doing that? Taking what that agreement is and showing us where we would make those changes to expand?
Yep.
All right. Do we need a
Excellent.
motion here, gang?
I will make a motion to authorize the first selectman to consult with town council regarding extending the scope of work for Mark's company, Mark Robbins' company, to further the progress on achieving our goal of reaching a conclusion on which way to go with solar panels on our school roof.
Can I
And I'll let you massage that.
make a friendly amendment?
Absolutely. I was hoping you would.
Do we need, do we need a second before I make the amendment?
No,
Okay, really expanding the scope of work to include, bear with me,
design,
to include, yeah, design or
design and
specs.
engineering.
Yeah. It's very simple, as far as I could tell. Mark, it's really to include design in the scope of work that we've already agreed to with you.
Or how about if we add the word facilitating?
Okay.
Because
That's
Mark will be
better.
subcontracting some of that out.
Oh, yes. Well, yep. Mark, does that sound like the animal we were talking about?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
All right, I will second that as amended.
All in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Aye. Mark, thank you so much for spending time with us tonight and helping us kind of get through this. We know it's complicated and it's hard for us to digest a lot of it, but we're picking up on the terminology and we're certainly, I could tell from the questions asked by my peers here, definitely able to ask some good questions. So
Well, good. All right. Well, thanks for your patience and
thank
attention.
you. Thank you
Thanks
for
for
your
your-
help.
Thanks, Mark.
Good night, guys.
Have a good night.
Good night. Okay.
Moving along.
All right, so we have finalized town building use fee schedule and Ashford Food Bank donation policy. I have not had the opportunity to work on it.
Move on.
Fire station, I'm gonna do it at a clip here. Fire station roof, the last I heard, they had started work before I went on vacation.
Looking good.
Dan expected them to be finished the middle of this week. Out with the rain, who knows?
Who knows? And we're gonna have some cost adjustments due to the amount of plywood they had to replace.
Right.
What, I'm sorry, you said something about cost adjustments?
They've
What?
had to replace a lot of plywood,
A lot.
Not surprising.
so there's gonna be an additional bill.
Will that change anything in terms of going over 100,000 and prevailing wage?
Think we have enough,
Oh, good, good.
I think.
Perfect. Oh, that's right. Okay. You heard that, Bill?
I did.
Okay. Let's see. Board and commission appointments. We don't have any changes to that at this. Oh, what we do have is a consideration of the reappointment of Tony Peticchio as Ashford Poet Laureate. We've been approached by the Arts Council and they would be delighted to have him reappointed.
I move for the reappointment of Tony Pataccio as our Ashford Poet Laureate.
Very good. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Right?
Aye.
Thank you. Aye. Tax refunds.
None.
None.
Good. What I had was on the thing with the job postings. We did add that. Did we add that to the agenda? Yes, we did.
Yeah.
So with the job postings, what I had done, Bill, made all the changes to the job descriptions.
Yep.
But what I didn't think of was, and because I really kind of haven't done it here before, is we really needed postings as well. I put the job descriptions out there and people are reacting to those, they're responding. But what we didn't put was what the pay was going to be and the hours. The hours were in the one for the municipal agent for the elderly, which was really awkward to do because one part of the position is appointed and the other one is not. And what I have in here is that
Well, wasn't that in the job description for the senior center director that we combined those?
it
And
said
it was
that
35
they were,
hours,
it didn't, no, it
5
wasn't.
days.
What we have here is, in this just job description, the senior center director shall also act as municipal agent for the elderly. And what I put in here is this shall be a 35-hour, 5-day per week combined position from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and afford some flexibility based upon the needs of the center and its users. Is that right?
That's right. And I think that's reflected in our minutes from our last meeting.
Very
that
good.
You were going to do that.
Yep. Okay, now let's move on to, bear with me. Just want to do a double check here. The emergency management. So with this one, if I understand correctly, and I can double check the number tomorrow, this position is paid a stipend of $5,000 per year. Is that correct?
I don't remember that.
Well, I know that they had 10,000 in their budget. And what I can do is I can confirm what it's a stipend, really. It's not a salary and
right.
it's not part-time. So I'll confirm the amount. All right. And we'll be good there. The inland wetlands and water courses agent. I wasn't sure what to put there, so I put 20 hours a week at $30 an hour. Because that's,
I looked that up at one time and I believe we had budgeted, some reason Lenny told me he had $30,000 in a budget. And when I looked at his budget, Chris, what was in there? 8 or 12,000?
in inland wetlands agent.
We pulled some of his timesheets
And
and what was spent for salary at the end of the year.
yeah,
And it's not a whole lot of time or money. So this may be inflated. I don't know.
Seems
We can look at them tomorrow.
okay. And what I need to do is get a sense of the number of hours per week we're asking for. And then again, the $30 an hour was what we were paying. What's his
Bruce.
name? Bruce.
Well, if you took $30 an hour,
Yeah.
times 20
20 times 52 is,
times 52, you get 31.2.
yep.
That may be where Lenny got it, but that's
I'll
not
bet.
what's reflected in the budget.
Yeah. I want to make sure, I'm not sure how many hours this person needs to
Yeah.
work. And Lenny's, he's on his way out, so I don't think that he's going to be the best judge of that. I don't know. At this time, because I know they have a lot of backup.
But when
Stuff.
when he told me 30, I immediately looked it up and I called him back on it.
Yeah.
And he was shocked and he said, well, I'll have to clarify that. And I said, well, I'm only going by what's in the printed budget. And I
Okay.
don't, it was either 8 or 12. I don't, for some reason,
God, I hope it's 12.
it's too
Okay.
late.
All right. So we'll confirm whatever is in the budget. What was the other one?
What you might say is $30 an hour, hours to be determined.
Oh, very good. That works. And the other one was the
The
Land use.
land in.
yeah, let me,
yeah.
can I see what I wrote in that one? Because I tried to do this quicker. Land use building clerk position is 35 hours per week, 4 days per week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. And the intent was to line it up with the other department hours because,
Right.
okay. And I said the anticipated starting salary is, well, I said salary, but right now it's been hourly. So, but it would still be basically at 35 hours a week, it's full time. So I guess kind of went with what they were getting for per hour, what
Well, I think,
it was
and I know you're
26.55.
appealing that, but I believe you have to go by what's in the union contract.
Which is what I did. Okay.
And of course, that person would be starting, you will have the caveat there of it's 90% for
So
90 days.
here's what I did. I talked with Karen and it's 26.55 per hour. And I put a range of 23.90 to 26.55. The 23.90 represents a 90%.
Good.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with that.
And I also put DOQ, which is depends on qualifications. I just left that
Yep.
in there. I saw it in something else. Okay, so that's good. Okay, good. And then the other one was our custodian, and we already have a rate for that. So I'll just pull the one we have. All right, and so what we got out on the website is the job descriptions, and tomorrow a formal kind of job posting will go there, but I'm also going to take it down to the town clerk's office and have her post them up in her board.
Okay. The Public Works one,
Yeah,
Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Yukon posted statewide on Public Works jobs.
oh, really? So you're saying you want us to do that kind of a thing?
Well, it's free.
Okay, Yukon Public Works jobs. We'll follow up on that tomorrow for posting there.
Now, it could be that's just for administrative jobs because I put it in there. That's how we happen to get several applicants for Joe's job when he was leaving from other towns.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Excuse me. Okay. All right.
Move to adjourn?
Are we at that point, guys?
I got 901.
Seconded.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank
all
you.
in favor?
Welcome back.
Okay. Take care.
You too. Good night, folks.
Good night.